All right, everybody. It is Dave's R&R Rambles and Reviews with your host, Dave. And this is probably one of our most unique episodes yet to date, I would say. Usually, I'm talking WWE or sports betting, a little bit of movies and music mixed in there. We haven't really dived into the TV world yet, and this isn't really even current television right now because this is going to be a retrospective on How I Met Your Mother. So, a little bit of background here. I watched the show as it aired and loved it. It's arguably one of the best sitcoms of our generation. And then the final season came out, and the final season spent a lot of time on one particular event. All of that's supposed to lead up to the time Ted finally meets the mother. And spoiler alert, the show ends with the mother being dead for years as he's talking to his son and daughter, and he ends up going back to Robin at the end of the show. And at the time, everyone was disgusted by this ending. Everybody hated it. If you type in on Google, most hated TV show endings of all time, worst TV show endings of all time, this is going to be on just about every single list. This happened about 8.5 years ago. That's when the final episode aired of How I Met Your Mother, March 31st, 2014. We're a little under 8.5 years. And all that time, I never watched a single episode of the show again. But recently, I've been going through some classics with my fiance. She's never seen them, maybe an episode here or there. But we went through Parks and Rec, we went through The Office, and the latest one we went through is How I Met Your Mother. And I want to get her perspective on everything because I knew the ending going in. But, I wanted to watch it back, see what I thought about it after, and more importantly, see her thoughts on how the ending plays out now. Watching it in more of a streaming fashion where we just binge through everything compared to having to wait to a week to week back in the day. So binging through everything, she actually didn't mind the ending, and watching it in the binge format, it kind of made sense. It was always Ted and Robin since the beginning. Since episode 1, the end game should have always been Ted and Robin. And this just spoke throughout the series even more than ever just watching it all back to back, especially knowing the ending. I think that was the key going back in, knowing how the show ended. It should have just been Robin from the beginning. And there's a couple points I'm going to make along the way where they screwed up on this. But I mean, just Ted going back and finding the box for Robin. Ted setting up that whole Christmas show for Robin. Ted doing every single little thing, even when they were just friends, for Robin. Ted telling Robin to get out of the car when Barney was going to propose. I mean, it was always Ted and Robin. And that's what I have to harp on. And the next character I'm going to talk about here is Lily. Because at the time, Lily was super hated, just how she acted throughout the show, how she left Marshall. But watching it, through just over a couple weeks on Netflix, or sorry, Hulu, just watching it all back to back, it wasn't really as bad as I thought it was back then. The Lily saga was just so early on in the show, you kind of just forget about it by the end. I think it's something at the time where it made her such a bad character in everybody's eyes. But really, she supported Marshall's dreams throughout the show. Marshall supported hers. They quote unquote relationship goals at some points. I mean, they were supposed to be the perfect couple of the show. I love Marshall in the show. I think at the end, he's probably my favorite character. But, Lily wasn't as bad as I remember. My biggest negative going into my rewatch and after the rewatch is how they treated Barney the final season of the show. And essentially Barney and Robin's relationship. Because at the end of the day, Barney should have been with Gwen. That was the perfect foil for him. Met her at a strip club. She played him. They both played their games. I thought they were perfect for each other. Their proposal was absolutely perfect. It was so Barney compared to the Robin proposal, which I didn't think held up as well as I thought it would. And, it didn't really spark interest in my fiance like I thought it would. Barney's proposal to Robin didn't hold up at all. I thought it was terrible. The end of the playbook part was kind of interesting, but just how it happened, I didn't think was all that good. But his proposal to Gwen was awesome, and really, they should have had Barney's story end there with Gwen. Both of them seemed like they were going to turn the page and turn a corner if they were to get engaged. I would have loved to see them get married and start really maturing as characters. But instead, they went with Robin, which I thought would have been okay as well, because in the final season, every single episode was 20 some episodes about the day or two leading up to the wedding. Every single episode gave us a reason why they would work at the end of the day. I thought the biggest point of this to me was when Barney put together the surprise party at the ice rink that was all Canadian themed. They did it so perfectly too. They made it perfectly seem like Barney and Robin were the perfect match at the end of the day, and they would have their happy ever after while Ted moved on to the mother. But no, they still take those 20 some odd episodes and that final episode, twirl it up, crush it into a ball, and throw it in the trash. That last season was just about as much of a waste as it could be from the Barney and Robin perspective. So I think at the end of the day, my final takes on this, like I said, it was always Ted and Robin from the beginning. And I think in the back of our heads at the time, we all kind of knew it, but we had such a hope that Ted was going to meet the girl of his dreams, and Tracy, in reality, was perfect for him. She was everything Robin couldn't be for Ted. And they should have just let it play out like that. They should have let the alternative ending of the show that they put on the DVD be the real ending while keeping Barney and Robin's relationship intact. But if their end game really was Ted and Robin, they should have cut the whole final season. They should have never done Barney and Robin and making them seem perfect for each other. They should have done Barney and Gwen. So, to this day, 8.5 years later, I'm not as mad about the ending as I was the first time. Maybe that's because I knew it was going to happen. But seeing it from my fiance's perspective, just binging it through, not knowing how it ended, and kind of just shrugged it off being Ted and Robin. And her words were that it just made sense. That's what they were leading up to the whole show before the final season. I mean, you can't argue that. It's just how they went about it. So at the end of the day, I do think How I Met Your Mother should still be on this list of worst endings ever. But I think everybody who still holds that grudge against the show like I did and refuses to watch an episode like I did, go back and watch your favorite episodes or your favorite seasons of the show, because in reality, the show, to this day, it still holds up very well. The jokes still hold up well. The show, if it was released today, would probably be such a part of cancel culture just because of how Barney's played some of the scenarios in the show. But it's still as funny as it was back then. You just gotta tune that ending out, and the signs were there since the beginning, but just let that go. Enjoy the show for what it was at the time. Skip that final season on your watch through if you really hate it that bad, but at the end of the day, How I Met Your Mother, despite being as bad of an ending and as butchered of an ending as it was, it's still one of my favorite shows at the end of the day, and I did realize that during this rewatch. And I'm still going to go back and watch episodes now every once in a while that are some of my favorites. And I just suggest the same. So thank you for listening to my 9 minute or so rant about How I Met Your Mother. It's kind of something we all knew. The ending sucked, but everything along the way was great. They butchered it. That's on them, not us. But we still just have to enjoy the episodes we enjoy at the end of the day. It's just like The Office, which maybe I can talk about another day. Those last few seasons just cut them from the record books, but we all still go back and watch those old Office episodes. So I just suggest the same for How I Met Your Mother. And, that's the end of this episode for us. Thank you for all the support. We're going to try to get back on track, like I said, football season's here now, so let's have some fun with that. There's a bunch of big video game releases in the fall, especially Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Will it hold up to the old one? Probably not, but we'll see in a couple months. We've got some big time Marvel movies coming out too, so I'm going to try to churn out as much content as I can in the next couple months in the fall and going forward. So follow on Instagram and Twitter at Dave's R&R. Follow my other podcast at Fade or Follow Podcast. If you want to hear some more gambling, that one's all gambling, so definitely give us a follow. We're trying to grow that as well, and let's just have some fun. Everyone have a great week. Thank you for listening, and be easy.